You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds, or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
And breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We've got the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing right now. Indeed, looking at records for all three here with the S&P up 18, a gain of 0.6%. Stocks are rising as investor appetite for risk returns after the U.S. and Iran step back from the brink of war. Right now, the Dow is up 199 points, higher by 0.7%. NASDAQ also pushing higher, up now by 63 points for the NASDAQ Composite Index. That is a gain of just about 0.7%. 10 years up 6/32, the yield 1.85%. Gold moving lower today, looking at a 0.2% drop for the precious metal. Right now, an ounce of gold is at $15.53 the ounce, and a pullback for both West Texas Intermediate Crude and Brent. WTI is down 0.2%, $59.50 a barrel, and Brent is at 65.36, lower by 0.1%. So again, recapping, we do have records with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all pushing higher. A record on the S&P up 18, a gain there of just about 0.6%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Massar along with Jason Kelly right here on YouTube and Bloomberg Radio.
Little soft sell, I believe, getting us into our next guest. He's in our Bloomberg 99.1 studio in Washington, D.C. Is it soft sell? It's not soft sell. Is it soft sell? No. I can't remember. I'll figure it out.
We'll get it.
Anyway, Sean Donnan, great guy, music aficionado. He may correct me on this. Senior trade reporter for Bloomberg.
Naked Eyes.
Naked Eyes. There you go.
Thank you, Google.
That's my bad.
Okay, go ahead.
So Sean Donnan, trade has sort of, at least in the public consciousness, the investor consciousness, maybe taken, sorry to say, a little bit of a backseat to more geopolitical matters, at least over the past week. And yet, something big may be happening in D.C., in your neck of the woods next week.
Yeah, so it turns out that investors get scared by the prospects of real wars as well as trade wars, as you point out. So hasn't been a happy new year so far. But next week, on the trade war front, at least, we're going to get some happy news. The U.S. and China are finally going to sign that deal.
How do you know, Sean Donnan? Not that I'm...
not that you're cynical
or negative or anything, but, funnier things have happened.
You're absolutely right. We shouldn't count our eggs before they hatch. We should always watch out for our promises, etc. The president...
It's going to happen, you're pretty sure?
Look, I think the best reason we have to believe that January 15th, the president and the visiting Chinese delegation are going to meet at the White House and sign this thing is that the Chinese actually, for the first time, confirmed it today. And that is important. We've had a lot of words from the president, a lot of tweeting from the president, promising this signing ceremony January 15th, and the Chinese finally did confirm that. Now, that's a big deal, and that's part of the reason the markets are hitting those record highs now is because they calmed down before Christmas when this thing was first starting to take shape, and it looked like the U.S. and China weren't going to continue escalating their trade wars.
Right.
That's something investors and businesses like. But it's the beginning of a process rather than a big change, and so trade's not going to go away as a kind of uncertainty factor.
Well, Sean Donnan, as you know, and certainly our audience knows, trade was a big topic of discussion on the campaign trail for then presidential candidate Donald Trump, and certainly as president. So is Trump winning or losing when it comes to trade? What does the trade data, trade gap show us?
Right. So earlier this week, we got the latest trade data for November. It gives us the first 11 months of last year, and there's some good news for Donald Trump in that it looks like for the first time in his presidency, the U.S. trade deficit with the world is likely to go down in 2019. Just 1 month left to go. Now, it will be the second highest on record in all likelihood. It'll be over $800 billion. That's a big number. It's more, it'll be higher than when he took office, but the administration has, and they are doing this. I was on the phone with Peter Navarro, Trump's trade advisor, earlier this week, and they're crowing about this. They believe that they are changing the direction of the relationship with China and the world, and that's one of the president's big promises, and he's going to be taking that into the election. That said, there's
the devil's in the details.
The devil's in the details. And actually a big reason why the trade deficit is coming down is because of what's happening in the oil sector, that shale oil revolution. The petroleum deficit with the world is way down. In fact, in September, October, and November, the U.S. was a net exporter of petroleum products to the world, which is pretty remarkable. And when you look at non-petroleum goods, the kind of manufactured goods that Donald Trump was promising to change the picture for, well, it's a different story. That trade deficit is actually continuing to go up.
And so, Sean, phase two, likely, or is it just sort of a wait and see at this point?
I think it is likely, and we've heard this from the president today again, that we will see some kind of negotiating happening on a phase two, but also incredibly unlikely, and I've heard this from folks inside the White House, I've also heard it from plenty of folks down here in Washington, that we actually get a phase two concluded this year.
Unlikely, you said.
In fact, the president said himself that he didn't think that would happen until after the election.
While we have you, sorry, I just want to ask you about USMCA. Where do we stand there? Carol's rolling her eyes because I didn't call it USMCA. Sorry.
No, that's not why I'm rolling.
Well, and actually USMCA, the president made some news on that. He today, while he was talking to reporters, said, and he was talking about his capacity to rename things, and he cited USMCA, saying that he had decided to rename NAFTA USMCA in part because it sounded like the song YMCA.
No way! So what's he going to call it? NAFTA?
Well, no, he's calling it USMCA, but he said USMCA sounds like YMCA, and that's why you and I remember it, and we're all forgetting, according to the president, that old bad name NAFTA. Look,
so it's rebranding, ultimately.
Well, and he's good at that, right? And that is something worth keeping in mind. The biggest thing about USMCA is, look, this is NAFTA 2.0. It's a rebranded, repackaged, updated NAFTA. It's in the Senate right now. It's going to go through a whole bunch of committees next week. We may get a vote in the full Senate by the end of the month.
All right, well, we shall see. I'm going to put your story out on Twitter because I think what's interesting, too, is the manufacturing sector, which the president also talked about on the campaign trail, whether or not what's going on with trade is making a difference there. Sean Donnan, you are the best.
Is that why you rolled your eyes at
Yes, because I thought that with jobs, and I just thought it would be important, too.
You thought that was more important than YMCA? We brought that news to people.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say yes.
Whoa.
Sean Donnan, senior trade reporter at Bloomberg News from our 99.1 studio in Washington, D.C. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit about equalities and inequalities when it comes to healthcare. So stick around for that story. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Massar, Jason Kelly, live on Bloomberg Radio and on the Bloomberg Terminal.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute.
Middle East calm is giving stocks room to run. The market remains higher. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 194. The S&P 500 is up 18. The Nasdaq Composite gaining 63. Bed Bath & Beyond is getting clobbered, down 19% after posting disappointing quarterly results last night. Analysts say things are going from bad to worse for the chain as third quarter same-store sales fell 8.3%. It's something straight out of the Jetsons. iRobot says it's working on a household helper that will have arms that could load dishes, pick up clothes, or bring food to the table. The company cautions that it won't be ready for at least 5 years. Fast food and six-figure salaries are rarely heard in the same sentence, but Taco Bell is offering $100,000 paychecks for managers in select restaurants in the Northeast and Midwest. It's hoping the higher salaries will help it attract workers. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Hey, it's me, your cell phone. We need to talk about something serious. I know you love me. I know you like using me wherever you are, but I feel like this isn't working out when you're driving. I know you may think that it's possible to focus both on me and the road, but I just don't feel the same way. I think we should spend time away from each other when you're driving. It's for the best.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
What if you could keep the top economic experts in a conference room next to your office without having to feed them?
Do we need better optics? Do we need some substance? Do CEOs care about ESG?
We have seen quite a lot of stimulus pumped into the system already.
It's the biggest warning yet about the financial risks of climate change.
Now there are more ways to hear us. Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and at BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Had the same job for the last 15 years. Working with the same people, in the same office, drinking tea from the same comedy mug, eating the same crayfish and rocket sandwich every lunchtime, using the same business jargon, and climbing the same greasy pole. What does that even mean? Then maybe it's time to switch it up, starting with the all-new Vauxhall Corsa. With its bold styling and up to 70 miles per gallon. To switch it up, visit your local Vauxhall dealership or search New Corsa. Official WLTP test figures for comparison purposes only. Real-world figures may vary.
At TradePoint, you can get your building essentials at low prices, all in one place, making big jobs smaller. Like 25-kilogram Thistle multi-finish plaster for only £6.74. For all you need, when you need it. Get to TradePoint or go to tradepoint.co.uk.
Puts his head down, crashes, and
the snap is good. The hold is good. The kick is on its way. It is good!
Did you know all weekend long the NFL playoffs are on TuneIn?
In for the touchdown!
Search NFL to never miss a moment of the action.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour. But we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow and tune in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Hello, I'm Nat Coombs from ESPN's The Nat Coombs Show, which admittedly is 1 out of 10 for original podcast name, but 10 out of 10 for NFL chat. Every week, we're dropping 4 episodes with an all-pro lineup of terrific guests, journalists, comedians, players, coaches, you name it, all getting you up to speed with everything gridiron. The Nat Coombs Show, American football, British accent. Add to your favorites and listen on TuneIn.
You might already know that TuneIn allows you to listen to all the pro sports leagues wherever you go. But did you know TuneIn is also home to the wide world of college sports?
Open three, DeAndre Hunter got it! Handoff Carruthers, big hole right side. He leaps and he surges in. Touchdown!
From live college football, basketball, and baseball games to podcasts and coaches shows fueling your love for the game in your school. And the best part is, it's all free. Search college sports to find your team or league.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Coming up, we're going to talk about healthcare through an economic lens and help people understand how inequality plays into what is an incredibly complex and costly system, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll get to that in just a moment. Let's get back, though, to some of your top business stories also. Let's see what's going on in the trading day. Hey, Charlie.
Well, hello there, Carol Master. Just getting word from Iran that it has notified the National Transportation Safety Board it is joining the probe of the crashed plane this week at Tehran Airport. U.S. officials have said that a missile likely brought the plane down. Stocks are pushing higher. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing as investor appetite for risk returns after the U.S. and Iran step back from the brink of war. S&P 500 index up 19 now. That is a gain of 0.6%. We've got the Dow Jones Industrial Average also higher up now by 193 points. That is a gain of just about 0.7%. NASDAQ also at a record right now, up 65 points, a gain there of 0.7%. As for the market outlook, Jim Glassman is senior economist at J.P. Morgan.
When I look at what's behind all this optimism that might be driving the equity market, well, there's three things I can think of. The U.S. business cycle is set up very differently than in the past. It's not as inflationary. Financial imbalances aren't really obvious. The innovation that's going on is just remarkable, the way it's transforming the economy, helping a lot of businesses. And the global economy is waking up and wanting to do their work. So there's a lot of opportunities for our companies.
Right now, we've got the 10-year up 6/30 seconds with a yield of 1.85%. Tough day for a lot of big, well-known retailers. Bed Bath & Beyond, for example, a story we told you about after the close of trading yesterday. Shares are plunging to their lowest in more than a month after the home goods retailer pulled its year forecast and said third-quarter results missed estimates. Shares of Bed Bath & Beyond, they are down by 18.7%. Disappointing holiday sales numbers from Kohl's, sending that stock lower. Kohl's shares down by 7.5%. JCPenney after earnings plunging by 11.2%. On the plus side, LB Limited Brands up now by 2.7%. 10-year up 5/30 seconds again with a yield of 1.85%. We've got gold down 0.2%. Oil moving lower today. West Texas Intermediate 59.61 a barrel. So again, recapping, equity markets are trading at records. S&P 500 index up 19 now. That is a gain of 0.6%. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Master along with Jason Kelly. So, Jason, remember earlier this week, we caught up with the CEO of Tivity Health, and we talked about nutrition, care, wellness when it comes to one segment of our population, specifically seniors. Well, here to talk about the equal opportunity and access for all when it comes to healthcare specifically is Dr. Keisha Pollack-Porter, professor and associate dean at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. We do want to point out the Bloomberg School of Public Health, supported by Michael R. Bloomberg, founder of Bloomberg LP and Bloomberg Philanthropies, and of course home to Bloomberg Radio and Bloomberg Television. Dr. Pollack-Porter, nice to have you here with us. When we look at inequalities, we talked about inequalities in general a lot here at Bloomberg, but when it comes to healthcare, how bad are the gaps out there? Give us some perspective.
Yeah, first, thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it. Well, let me just start off by saying that we know that there are differences in terms of people's access to health services, people's use of health services, and we know that it's an economic issue because of the large number of the great amount of money that's spent on medical care expenditures. And why this is important is that these are preventable issues. And if we just do a better job of investing in what we consider more upstream, so things like poverty, education, housing, that actually can help keep people out of the hospital system and help to reduce costs.
And Dr. Pollock-Porter, I wanted to ask you about one specific area where you work, which is around physical activity. And it's so interesting because that feels very tangible in a way, and we're often talking about children and physical activity. Help us understand what your work has shown and maybe some of the solutions there.
Well, we know that in this country that there are significant gaps in terms of access to being physically active and physical activity levels. We know that only 1 in 4 kids in this country are getting the activity they need, and we know that that proportion is even less for children from low-income neighborhoods and communities of color. One thing that we've been doing in our work is promoting something called play streets, and play streets are a way of temporarily transforming a neighborhood. Think about something as ubiquitous as a street in front of where you live. You can take those streets, take them back so that they're not just seen as places for cars, and transform them into places for kids to play safely. We see that play streets are really important in areas that don't have access to safe places for kids to be active. And we know when kids aren't active that has implications for obesity, for behavior, for learning. And so we've really been partnering with communities across the country to make these areas more accessible and to give kids safe places to play and be active.
It's interesting. I'm listening to you say that, and I thought, man, growing up, I'm one of 7 kids. We just lived outside, and that was every season, winter, summer, spring, fall. We didn't need to set up something per se. That's what we did. And I do wonder, I think about healthcare and the deeper issues. Like you note that if we had fairer wages, housing and transportation, for instance, there would be a knock-on effect of better health. We have some really deep-seated problems within our society that ultimately affect healthcare, the current situation, and the outcome. And I think, how do we start to tackle that? What's the best thing to do?
I personally believe that it's important that we embrace an approach that we call health equity. And if we have a health equity or an equity approach to policy, which means that every person has a fair and just opportunity to be as healthy as possible. And this means that we need to remove obstacles to accessing good health, such as poverty, discrimination, and their consequences. So if we promote policies that address the significant inequities in terms of access to jobs and education and housing, that really get to those root causes and address poverty and discrimination and racism, I think we can make a difference.
And so, Dr. Pollock-Porter, where does this need to happen most urgently? Or maybe a different way to ask it is, what's the most effective layer of government and policymaking that people should be focused on? Is it the city level? Is it even lower down than that? Is it county, state? Where is it?
I'm going to say it's at multiple levels.
Okay.
It's at the local government, state government, federal government, and even institutional policies. So thinking about a business, looking at policies within businesses that are really promoting equity, looking at policies within a school system. So I truly believe and have seen evidence of impacts of policies at various levels that can be really impactful and make a difference.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for spending some time with us, Dr. Keisha Pollock-Porter, Professor and Associate Dean at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. And as you might have picked up on the name, the Bloomberg School of Public Health, supported by Mike Bloomberg. He's the founder of Bloomberg LP and Bloomberg Philanthropies, and also owns this radio station.
He does indeed. Hey, coming up, we've been watching since we talked about this story late yesterday after the closing bell. Bed Bath & Beyond came out with their earnings after the close yesterday. The stock cratering in the after hours, and man, that selling has continued into the regular trade. Stock's down about 18%. So we're going to dig into it. I'm curious, too, about the credit picture of this company. I'm wondering if it's running out of time, perhaps.
Right.
So we're going to get a deep dive into that one in just a moment.
You just have to sort of control your impulse.
Can I get out of the store?
Criticize the store. All right, let's get to Bob Moon now. World and national headlines. Hey, Bob.
Jason, U.S. intelligence officials increasingly believe that a Ukrainian jet that fell from the sky after taking off from Tehran this week was shot down by a missile, according to 2 people familiar with the evidence, killing all 176 people aboard. One of those sources says 2 surface-to-air missile launches were detected from an Iranian battery minutes after the jet took off, followed by an explosion near the plane. The Boeing 737-800 was on fire as it plunged, according to witnesses on the ground and in other aircraft cited in a preliminary Iranian report on the crash. President Trump is adding to the suspicion, but won't say directly the Iranians are to blame.
At some point, they'll release the black box.
Ideally, they'd get it to Boeing, but if they gave it to France or if they gave it to some other country, that would be okay too. I think, ideally that will be released. I have a feeling that it's just something very terrible happened.
Trump suggested it could well have been a mistake. Iran sent mixed signals today as tensions with the U.S. appeared to ease, with President Hassan Rouhani warning of a very dangerous response if the U.S. makes another mistake, and a senior commander vowing harsher revenge for the killing of a top Iranian general. Despite escalating pressure ahead of the 2020 presidential election, Facebook reaffirmed its freewheeling policy on political ads today, saying it won't ban them, won't fact-check them, and won't limit how they can be targeted to specific groups of people. Instead, Facebook said it will offer users slightly more control over how many of the ads they see. Global News 24 hours a day on air. I'm Bob Moon.
Rich is just a really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich, no. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize-change.
You might already know that TuneIn allows you to listen to all the pro sports leagues wherever you go. But did you know TuneIn is also home to the wide world of college sports?
Open three, DeAndre Hunter got it! Hand off Carruthers, big hole right side. He leaps and he surges in, touchdown!
From live college football, basketball, and baseball games to podcasts and coaches shows fueling your love for the game in your school. And the best part is, it's all free. Search college sports to find your team or league.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and flows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Heading for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marshawn scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
It tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Right now, instead of hearing this, you could be listening to the music that keeps you moving with TuneIn Premium. Find today's biggest songs and all of your favorites commercial-free. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
The NBA is on TuneIn Premium.
Pointer by Anthony Davis. It's good!
Each week, TuneIn picks an NBA game you just can't miss. Two of the top teams in the Western Conference go head-to-head. This Sunday, the Clippers are at the Nuggets. Tip-off is at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Three ball on the way. He got it to go! Three from the angle. Got it!
Search NBA to follow your favorite NBA team today.
BNY Mellon's Pershing, we bring customized insights and strategies to help you grow your advisory business and stay on the leading edge. We can support the needs of your most sophisticated clients with a full range of investment and wealth management solutions, from access to private banking to consolidated bank and brokerage custody. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength and high-touch service that BNY Mellon's Pershing can provide. Are you well positioned to stand out from your competition?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Brokerage custody provided by Pershing LLC and other services provided by Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC. Both members of FINRA and SIPC. Private banking and bank custody provided by BNY Mellon NA. Member FDIC.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash. From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says the evidence indicates that Ukrainian plane that was shot down by Iran was struck by missiles. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ, they're all advancing right now. S&P up 20, a gain there of 0.6%. The Dow up 207 points, up 0.7. NASDAQ up 69, a gain there of 0.8%. We've got the 10-year up 430 seconds, yield 1.85%. Gold lower right now, down 0.2%, $15.53 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude $59.61 a barrel. Stocks higher, in fact, trading at records as investor appetite for risk returns after the U.S. and Iran step back from the brink of war. S&P up 19, recapping higher by 0.6%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thanks a lot. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week right here on Bloomberg Radio.
Turn your love around. It's trying to turn around itself. We're talking about Bed Bath & Beyond, but man, based on the latest quarterly update, financial update, it's not quite happening yet. And the stock is down about 18%. You've heard Charlie Pellet talk about it throughout the day. Bed Bath & Beyond down 18% at $13.64 a share. So let's get into the story. Director of Consumer
retail trends at creditintel.com. Known to our Bloomberg audience, who's a former analyst with our Bloomberg intelligence team, Seema on the phone from Great Neck, New York. Seema, great to be talking with you. Jason and I walked through the numbers last night. The company pulling its year forecasts. Analysts have weighed in saying that the results at the company have gone from bad to worse. How do you see it?
I think people are just really concerned because they want some sort of clarity as to what the new CEO's plan is going to be to turn it around. And if you listen to the call yesterday, it was really very general as to what it is he wants to implement, and the fact that holiday was also very weak, or this last quarter with comps falling 8.3%. I think people are just worried, like, what will they need to do to actually turn it around? I don't think the analysts got the color that we wanted. Like, what are you going to do? Is the improvement you saw on an adjusted calendar basis, will that continue into December? And I think that, type of mystery is really concerning people. But on the flip side, he is a new CEO. I think he got rid of 6 senior members of management at the end of December. I think he's really trying to reevaluate the business and see what he needs, and then to get the right people on board to execute.
Seema, I'm going to ask you a dumb question, and it's probably a variation of a question that I asked you when you used to come into our studio as part of the BI team. How come somebody can't figure this out? Like, is this really that difficult, at least to put the right plan in place? Like, regardless of whether the plan works, it feels like they haven't come up with a cogent plan in a number of years.
You have some ideas.
I think I would agree, but if you do listen to what any of the plans are, both successful and maybe unsuccessful, they really fall under the same thing. You got to have the right people. You need to have the right product, unique product, and a good experience online, offline, or some combination thereof. And the problem is actually the execution. So if you listen to what the CEO said, I think that's what he's trying to do. But you have to get all the right people in place. And Bed Bath in particular, they really had a very static senior management team for many, many, many years. So I think part of it will be clearing sort of legacy inventory, legacy processes as they turn it around. But I think that's where the stumbling block is, less on the plan as so far as execution.
Hey, one thing I wonder, Seema, is that the new CEO, right, comes from Target. Mm-hmm. We keep talking about Target being such a kind of major turnaround and success story. It was one of the top performers in the S&P 500 last year in 2019. So was he key in helping that turnaround in Target? So is he, in essence, then the right guy to potentially turn around Bed Bath & Beyond?
I think so. He was, a huge part of improving and creating Target's private label, which has been very successful, and also, in improving their omni-channel experience. So things like buy online, pick up in store, and that's really what Bed Bath needs. They need to find a set of unique and differentiated products, and I think part of his goal is to add the private label, which he has a lot of experience with, and same with the omni-channel. There's a lot of bottlenecks in their process in terms of collecting the packages, delivery, all that type of stuff. So I think he does have the expertise to do that, and I think that's part of why he was thought to be a good successor.
I have to say,
take over the company.
With Target, that's one of the things that recently got me back into Target. I ordered something online, and I kind of wanted to pick it up soon, and I think I got it the next day or something, and it was a really...
At the store.
At the store, and it was a really, really easy process, Jason.
So, Seema,
Right, and that's what's happening everywhere now. I'm sorry, Jason, I'm just going to say that BOPIS, really buy online, pick up in store, is the biggest trend. It's convenient for consumers, but it's also better for retailer margins.
Yeah.
And so, Seema, at what point is this company, and again, I think this is probably a question I've asked you before, but at what point is this company just done? It's just unsalvageable in your estimation?
Well, I would say from a balance sheet perspective and a credit perspective, they're in decent shape. They have plenty of cash. They generate a lot of cash. So I don't think there's any fear on that end at this point. It's not like some of their competitors. But I really think that after they do sort of this optimization and cut costs and figure out what they need to do, the other bigger effort and where you'll decide really if the company is going to succeed or not is whether they can become relevant again to younger customers. Because, what he mentioned yesterday, according to an NPD study, they don't have a lot of, they have a very weak connection with Gen Z and millennials. Right. And I think for most retailers, that's really the key. And if they can't do that, then, they'll at least be able to maintain margin in the near term, but longer term sales would be at risk. So I think that's where that's when I'd be really concerned about the branding or, can they be relevant? Is it even a concept that needs to exist? In
NPD, of course, a big group that follows retail. Hey, one thing I want to ask you about, Seema, is I'm looking at the balance sheet on the Bloomberg, the FA screen. I know you're probably really familiar with it, but it seems like Bed Bath & Beyond has a fair amount of debt on its balance sheet. Is that the case? And if so, is it problematic?
It's not problematic where they are. I think it's not. I wouldn't say that it was too much. I think they have a lot of cash, so I don't think there's any risk as it relates to the debt. They still actually even are buying back shares, surprisingly, even though it was a small amount in the quarter. But I think from a solvency perspective, they're in fine shape. So, and they just did a sale leaseback where they got $250 million in net proceeds. They'll probably continue to do other deals that they find that opportunistically. And remember, they also have multiple other concepts that are being evaluated. So any sort of transaction with those properties would also help.
That's right. Flow. Yeah, that's a great point. We were talking about the Christmas tree stores yesterday, and I was unkind about them, Seema. I confess, I was unkind about the Christmas tree stores.
It was cruel, Seema.
Yeah, exactly. Great to catch up with you. Really good to hear your voice. Seema Shah, Director of Consumer and Retail Trends at CreditIntel.com.
Bed Bath & Beyond was up about 53% last year, and I was assuming that was on expectations that the turnaround, you're going to see something. Yeah, exactly, something happen. But as we said, the stock's certainly seeing a fair amount of selling this year and down already 18% today.
I mean, I do think we are starting to get some sense over the last 18 months to 2 years of retail strategies that can work. Target obviously is a great example.
And that's moving a pretty big ship.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Kohl's has been interesting to watch as well. Obviously on the higher end, a Lululemon, something like that. But, it's possible. It's possible.
It's possible, absolutely. And we'll see what happens. And, since this guy is certainly familiar with what Target went through, but I think that's also very key when you've got an existing management infrastructure, changing the mindset
well,
and
the
having
idea that
to
he
get
got rid of six senior executives at the end of last year. It is a reminder that these things don't happen overnight.
No.
And yet I do feel like we've been talking about this name for a long time.
Absolutely. And right now you've got 12 holds on the stock, 5 buys and 3 sells, according to Bloomberg data. So, that's your mix when it comes to the analyst community. Hey, coming up, we're going to check on the bond market, the economic data, and just remember, tomorrow, of course, we get that closely watched monthly jobs report. And then coming up a little bit later, we've got the cover story of the magazine. Love this story.
It's a great one. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Jason Kelly and Carol Masser here in New York City, and this is Bloomberg.
Give same old a shake-up. Give it some gusto. Give your 4-dish repertoire the 40-dish treatment with all the ingredients you need delivered to your door. Give it new flavors to try, like creamy haddock linguine with tomato and chili. Give everybody a hearty plateful from just £2.98 each. Give it weekly dinners sorted. Go on, give it some gusto. Visit gusto.co.uk today and get 50% off your first box. Subscription auto-renews, cancel anytime.
Chilly January days in London are tough enough without a broken boiler. Keep your home warm and working this winter with 2 years interest-free credit and your boiler installed by one of our expert engineers. Plus, you'll get a 5-year British Gas warranty. And we can even quote by video call after work or on weekends. Get a quote by the 29th of February, and you can also get £200 off a new boiler or £400 off for our existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
Puts his head down, crashes in the snap is good. The hold is good. The kick is on its way. It is good!
Did you know all weekend long the NFL playoffs are on TuneIn?
In for the touchdown.
Search NFL to never miss a moment of the action.
Did you know your favorite radio stations are in your pocket? Yes, the TuneIn app lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio anywhere you want. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
The financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We move into the final hour of trading on this Thursday. We have got the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing, all trading at records. Stocks are gaining as investor appetite for risk returns after the U.S. and Iran step back from the brink of war. The dollar's advancing, and the S&P is on track for another record as the conflict between the U.S. and Iran has not escalated. The S&P up by 20 points. That's a gain of 0.6%. Right now, the S&P at a record 3273. Dow Jones Industrial Average also advancing, rallying 205 points right now, up 0.7%. NASDAQ is up 70. That is a gain of just about 0.8%. As for the global economic backdrop, Ben Mandel is global market strategist at JP Morgan Asset Management.
The truth is, when you look at the sweep of global data flow, I think you have evidence that things have stabilized. Mm-hmm. So I don't think you have any decisive indication that the global economy has turned up. But rather, and Europe is a very good example of that, you have evidence that's sort of choppy and indicates it's moving more sideways than down.
Federal Reserve Vice Chairman Richard Clarida says U.S. monetary policy is, quote, in a good place amid solid growth, stable prices, and a strong labor market. His remarks came at the Council on Foreign Relations in New York. The Bank of Israel cutting its 2020 GDP growth forecast by 0.1% to 2.9%. Jobless claims down to 214,000, the lowest in 5 weeks. The data suggests the labor market is starting the new year on a solid footing. The government will issue its monthly employment report tomorrow. Complete coverage. That number drops at 8:30 a.m. Wall Street time. Coverage heading into the number, and of course, the kind of analysis you've expected over the years from Bloomberg Radio once we get the number. Well, how's this for an economic indicator? Wanted restaurant manager competitive salary, $100,000. That number not being offered at some fancy, swanky location with culinary accolades. but at a fast food chain, Taco Bell. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all pushing higher, again recapping S&P up 19, a gain there of 0.6%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
And here we are. It is time for Business Week Economics. Carol Masser baring her teeth at the team.
I was apologizing to Carl Riccadonna because I think I had some coffee breath, and I hate
so you
that.
Can listen
I hate that in
to
me,
us,
and I hate that
you
in
can
others.
Watch us,
Morning.
but luckily, it's just sights and sounds.
There's no smells.
Anyway, Alex Harris is here. She is bond reporter for Bloomberg. Carl Riccadonna, our chief U.S. economist, of course, at Bloomberg Economics. They're both here in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. So the march toward Jobs Day, almost complete.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it tomorrow. Carl, remind us where your team is in terms of its forecast and also sort of the general mood leading up to this.
Sure. Well, this is the last jobs report of the decade, so nice. December.
No pressure, Labor Department.
Will end on a high note based on our forecast. So consensus is actually somewhat conservative. They're at 160,000. My team initially coming out of the November report pegged the December number at 205, so much higher than consensus. And as we filled in the data and updated the models and rerun our forecasts, we're standing by that 205 print. So
wow, that's
we're looking for a considerably
report.
above consensus print
ambitious.
For a number of reasons.
Why?
So part of it is that the trade war impact on the jobs data was much softer than what a lot of folks anticipated, and also the deceleration in economic growth, which should have dragged down the pace of hiring towards the end of the last year, didn't really happen to the full extent that a lot of people anticipated. And so I think a slew of factors really are setting us up for strength in December, and probably that strength carrying over into January as well. I don't think we're looking at 200,000 plus prints for the bulk of 2020, but I think we'll have a little bit of a hot streak here carrying on for a few months longer.
Alex Harris, bonds reporter at Bloomberg News. So how would a hot jobs report be read by the bond market tomorrow?
It's very much going to depend on that wage data. Again, everyone's looking for the wage inflation. Like, that seems to be the missing piece. It's not so much the headline number, it's that wage data. And right now,
average hourly earnings, right?
Exactly.
And I think our consensus
and they look forward in 2019, and they look forward in 2018, and they look forward in 2014.
So are we not seeing any of it?
No.
If you really zoom back and blur the lens and look at broad moving averages, you can
That's
see
how I like photos taken.
Exactly. The gauzy lens.
You have a few drinks, you squint.
Exactly. Twist your head a little bit.
Yeah.
You can see there's an upward trend, but it's a very soft upward trend. So the Phillips curve, which is that relationship between declining unemployment and rising wage pressures, it is still alive, but it is much flatter than it was in prior economic cycles. So there's certainly not a labor inflation problem that the Fed would have to contend with, and that's why I think the bond market reaction would be relatively muted.
Yeah, but this is it. This is what they're looking for. So figure, further rate cuts, being priced out of the market. We already are priced out today. Implied rate for the end of the year is somewhere around 134. So there's no full rate hike for next year priced in. We'll call it roughly 80%. So this is going to be the thing to watch. I'd keep an eye on curve steepening if we do get, that hourly earnings data, to be better than expected, because I don't think we've seen, I don't think we're done seeing the other side of 30 basis points on the 2s10s curve, so that's going to be something worth watching. But again, back to the inflation point, look at all the Fed speak today. Like, mine is Clarida, who had actually probably more interesting thing on details and future repo operations. Everyone's talking about inflation and still waiting for that 2% and looking for that elusive 2% number. And, it just, I don't know, at this point it just feels laughable. Like, we've been talking about looking for 2% for a decade and we can't seem to find it, and so at some point, and maybe Carl has a better idea than I do, at what point are we going to reevaluate 2%?
Well, they're talking about the average inflation targeting, right?
Sure. So they're kind of evaluating the game plan for hitting their inflation target or objective of 2%, and they're going to release updated plans if they do choose to update their strategy at some point this year. A lot of folks are thinking that will come around June of this year. But the point is, we're not that far from the 2% inflation target, and I think actually we're going to grind closer towards that. So if we look at the Fed's preferred objective, the core PCE deflator it's called, we're running in the vicinity of 1.6, 1.7. So we're undershooting, absolutely. And so the Fed needs to put their foot on the gas a little bit, which is what they accomplished last year with those 3 25 basis point rate cuts. And that should help to push things in that direction. I think the thing that's going to happen this year, to Alex's point, it's a curve steepener type of year, right? The Fed has made it very clear that they are not going to willingly budge on interest rates anytime soon unless there's really a severe economic shock. So if the Fed's standing pat, the economy continues to grow, the unemployment rate's grinding lower, that is going to be inflationary, and so that should price some inflation expectations into the market, which would be a curve steepener in that environment. We're also looking at a global landscape where maybe it's more broad-based health than what we saw last year. So when the U.S. was really the strongest game in town, that led to a strong dollar that depresses import prices, it depresses inflation. So if we see some dollar weakness this year, which was a good luck call for 2020, and I tend to agree with that view, then that's going to push more inflation into the system as well. And so that should help us get closer to that inflation target.
Right. All right. Well, thank you both so much. Carl Riccadonna, Chief U.S. Economist for Bloomberg Economics. Alex Harris, bond reporter for Bloomberg. Feels like there's a lot of news that keeps coming across. They keep getting these alerts, for read spikes. Have you seen these as well?
You work at a news organization.
Goodness gracious.
Can you tell us the end of the week?
What is happening?
No, I do feel
now?
like I know. I agree with you. And what I find is interesting is with that as the backdrop, the market resiliency. Sorry, I didn't mean to
absolutely.
Throw you
but
out there.
we're looking at, we've got a scoop on Equinox nearing an investment from Silver Lake. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about the at-home fitness. May dig into that a little bit later. A new VC fund backed by Peter Thiel, started by the Hillbilly Elegy author. Like, all these are sort of catching a bid, as they say, in terms of our readers. So,
all right. So there is a lot going on. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Hey, coming up, we're going to talk about the cover story of the magazine. This is a story Jason and I love, and it's a must-read because all of us, for the most part, if you're invested in the market, and certainly if you work at an employer and you've got an employee-sponsored benefit plan, you are in an index fund. And those index funds are controlled by 3 big players. They're called the Big 3, and that concentrated power and ownership, man, that's something you want to know about.
And the consequences aren't totally clear at this point. Let's get to Bob Moon now. He's got your World National Headlines. Hey, Bob.
Jason, it was an Iranian missile that brought down a Ukrainian passenger plane taking off from Tehran this week. So says Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at this hour. 63 Canadians were killed in the crash, and Trudeau says 138 of the victims were en route to Canada. Earlier, U.S. officials had said it was highly likely an Iranian anti-aircraft missile was responsible. The Canadian leader says it may have been unintentional. Iran has told Canada it will keep the black boxes, but allow outside access to them. The House is moving toward approval of a non-binding measure limiting President Trump's ability to take military action against Iran as criticism of the U.S. killing of a top Iranian general continues. Speaker Nancy Pelosi says while the War Powers Resolution does not require Trump's signature, it still has real teeth because it's a statement of the Congress of the United States. The impasse on scheduling the impeachment trial continues, but possibly not for much longer. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports from Capitol Hill.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi wanted assurance, among other things, that the Senate would not simply vote to dismiss the charges and cut the trial short.
All we want to know is, what are the rules? It doesn't mean we have to agree to the rules. I think we should move smartly and strategically.
Pelosi was asked if she would continue to delay indefinitely.
I'm not holding him indefinitely. I'll send him over when I'm ready. And that will probably be soon.
Pelosi said which members she appoints to make the House case depends on what the Senate will allow them to do. On Capitol Hill, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
President Trump says he thinks NATO should be expanded to include Middle East nations. He has a new name, NATOMI. I'm Bob Moon.
1858. The first transatlantic cable brings news of Europe.
We have the US tariffs on European goods.
Would you be standing ready to buy UK domestic stocks now?
It works for 3 weeks. Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
You are expecting an end of uncertainty.
It works every time.
What are you looking for in the event of a deal?
There are a confluence of factors.
Weekdays at 1 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
I'm a 40-year-old man that walked in there to get his high school diploma. It was very hard for me, but Miss Araceli, she gave me direction.
At age 47, Marco finished his high school diploma.
50% of getting your high school diploma is walking through those doors. The other 50% is doing the work.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
The Bloomberg Business of Sports podcast.
How did the Yankees become this mega valuable team?
Where the money is flowing inside sports around the globe.
From the marketing perspective, where are the dollars spent?
From union heads to team owners, Scott Soshnick and Michael Barr speak to the names that power this multi-billion-dollar industry.
Boston Red Sox CEO Sam Kennedy.
National Hockey League Commissioner Gary Bettman.
Bloomberg Business of Sports. Listen today on Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
You're fierce. You take care of business and don't hold back. Taking care of your health shouldn't be any different. You know when something's off. Don't ignore symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, and rashes. Listen to your body. It could be lupus. We're here to help you take control. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30-gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
Puts his head down, crashes in the snap is good. The hold is good. The kick is on its way. It is good!
Did you know all weekend long the NFL playoffs are on TuneIn?
In for the touchdown.
Search NFL to never miss a moment of the action.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip
Bayless. Follow and tune in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds, or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
On the goal line, scores! It takes it home!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
Hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
Move, hit a shot,
from regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today. The NBA is on TuneIn Premium.
Pointer by Anthony Davis. That's good!
Each week, TuneIn picks an NBA game you just can't miss. Two of the top teams in the Western Conference go head-to-head. This Sunday, the Clippers are at the Nuggets. Tip-off is at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Three ball on the way. He got it to go!
Three from the angle. Got it!
Search NBA to follow your favorite NBA team today.
Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
25 years ago, NJIT graduate Dick Sweeney co-founded Keurig Green Mountain, a company whose incredible innovations changed the way the world brews a cup of coffee. Today, he lectures widely on business leadership and is a strong advocate for NJIT's work to combine business education with the power of STEM.
NJIT is definitely fostering the innovative thinking for budding entrepreneurs simply because that's the world we live in. NJIT is producing students that have been trained, educated, and given the business acumen to be a contributor to a company. The distinct mission is to develop great STEM scholars. The attributes I've always looked for in team members are heart, smarts, guts, and luck. So we want people with passion, intelligence, courage, and never discount luck. The student coming out of NJIT has experienced all of that.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Records for the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ on this Thursday. Stocks pushing higher. Let's head right over to the first word breaking news desk for today's afternoon call. Here he is, Bill Maloney.
And good afternoon, Charlie. That's right. U.S. stocks trading higher again today with the Dow currently up 197 points. S&P's gain 18, while the NASDAQ climbs by 63. The U.S. 10-year yield at 1.85%. Gold is down 4. Small caps are a little changed, and all of the main 11 S&P sectors are trading higher, led by gains in technology, energy, and the financials. Nasdaq biotechs rise 0.5%. Transports rise 36. Semis are up 5 points, and the VIX is down by 4%. Leaders of the upside in the Dow, Goldman Sachs, Apple, and Coca-Cola, while Walgreens fell 2% and led to the downside. Also after earnings, Bed Bath & Beyond plunged 18%. And in other news, Kohl's fell 7% after the company saw the year at the low end of the range. And Boeing spiked intraday after a report that U.S. officials said the Ukrainian jet was likely shot down by Iran. And wrapping things up, Intuitive Surgical and KB Home report after the bell. Live from the first breaking news desk, I'm Bill Malone. Charlie?
Okay, I thank you very much, Bill. And to hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg, type SQUAWK, SQUAWK on your terminal. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thanks a lot. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week right here on Bloomberg Radio and streaming live on YouTube.
When it's 3, you can see it's a magic number.
Well, it is about 3. We're talking about BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. The big 3, right? They've got a nickname, and they also hold about 80% of all index money. That is what I call a WOA or WOW stat. So let's get into the story. It's the cover story. It's in the finance section as well, but it is the cover story of the magazine. Let's get into it with investing reporter Annie Massa. She co-wrote it. She's here in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio along with Jill Weber, Bloomberg Business Week editor. It's also on the Bloomberg at Bloomberg.com, and it's in the magazine on newsstands now. Jason, I love this story. It's our must-read, one of our must-reads for the week, because if you're invested in an employee retirement plan, you probably have your money in index funds, and you probably have it in index funds run by BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street.
That's right. And so what does it mean that all of these, I mean, it feels like the question you're trying to answer is, okay, these are the facts, but what do we make of it? And what does it ultimately mean for us as investors, for us as employees, and for these companies?
Yeah, the way we frame it in the story is really that it makes perfect financial sense to put your money in index funds. And over time, you've seen this vast shift from actively managed mutual funds to index mutual funds and ETFs as investors look for lower cost ways to grow their own money. But what's resulted is this power shift in some ways and it's really increased the voting power of the fund houses that offer all those index products. And those are the big 3 that you were referencing, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street.
And so what percentage of every company on the S&P 500 on average do these guys own?
On average, combined, those three firms own 22% of every S&P 500 company.
Which is one of those, like, figures. Like, wow, 22%, which is, like, up from, what, 10 years ago?
13.5%.
So it's almost doubled. Right?
Exactly.
And that, I think, was the genesis of, like, why we were captivated by this. That's been, like, a 10-year phenomenon of just, like, epic bull market that defined the last decade. And, you know, Matt Levine in his daily newsletter will love to point out amazing newsletter, money stuff. By the way, generous plug to our Bloomberg Opinion columnist, who's amazing.
Quick flex.
Loves to talk about trends and the hatred of this conversation. Because, look, index funds are maybe the greatest financial invention of all time. I'm invested in them. I'm pretty sure everybody else is basically touching them. A lot of good that this has done for the world as a whole and brought the cost of investing down, provided diversity. And yet, I think this is the real thrust of the story, Annie, is sort of like, what are the unintended consequences that come from this phenomenon becoming really, really, really hyper successful?
Exactly. And there's this anxiety that's been percolating in academic circles and some activist circles as well around especially the increased voting power that those three firms have at the corporate level, and also some anxiety over could it ever be an antitrust issue.
So that's the one that I want to talk about a little bit, because big tech is the thing that from a regulatory standpoint, you know, if anything seems like it's in the ire of Congress right now, or regulators in general, I should say, is probably big tech. But why might the big three gain some interest?
Yeah, the comparison there is really that big tech has made our lives better in so many ways, and you're starting to see some of the trade-offs that come with all those improvements to your life. And so the comparison we draw in this story is that, okay, like, it's made investing so much easier, so much cheaper to have index products, but the unintended consequences, as you were saying, is the idea that you've had this power shift. And you're starting to see regulators, especially the FTC, just start to monitor this issue and ask some questions about it, because it's been coming up as a topic again and again.
And the two words that jump out, common ownership. Right. That's the part of the story that I think warrants even more discussion.
And so, Annie, what is the power that they are exerting, or importantly, not in a lot of these cases? Because that seems to be one of the big questions. As shareholders, what are they actually doing or not doing?
Exactly. So there are two camps on this, really, on the voting level. Some say that they have so much power that they could potentially one day, as they grow their voting power, sway the outcomes of, say, board elections or shareholder proposal votes. What the big three would tell you is none of them alone has the ability to sway any of those kinds of decisions right now. So it's a non-issue, and they say we don't vote as a bloc. But that's one camp, that they might have too much power. The other camp is that maybe they're too hands off, that because they own so many, they own, every company, how could they possibly take a really active role?
If they own Coke and they own Pepsi, what's their incentive to really spur innovation at either?
And make capitalism this fierce place that it's supposed to be, right? And I think, the other part that ties to that is, on the silent side, is the climate change conversation, because that's been climate change activists being a really vocal group to say index funds aren't actually doing enough on this topic.
And there's been so much scrutiny there that actually today you did see BlackRock join this investor advocacy group on climate change.
All right. Good stuff. Great story. It's the cover story. Check it out when it hits newsstands. You can read it on the Bloomberg terminal and Bloomberg.com. Today, Annie Massa co-wrote the story, investing reporter for Bloomberg. Joel Weber, editor of the magazine. He was here with us as well.
It's great visual, too, when it comes to the cover. Hey, coming up, we're going to check in on the chart of the day and also talking about beer and college. Yeah, they often go together, but maybe not when it comes to a beer tax. We'll break down the details. What's coming up on Bloomberg Radio, and this is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks remain near their highs for the day in the final hour. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 200. The S&P 500 up 19. The Nasdaq Composite gaining 67. Boeing is up about 2% on speculation that a missile strike or terrorist bomb took down a Ukrainian jet near Tehran this week. The jet was an older Model 737 that does not use the flight control system, implicated in 2 crashes of the 737 MAX. States suing to block T-Mobile's planned merger with Sprint are urging a federal judge not to defer to the Trump administration's approval of the deal. In a court filing, the states called a government probe of the deal cursory and said it should be ignored. Luxury gym operator Equinox is close to landing an investment from the private equity firm Silver Lake. Sources say it would help Equinox, which is also majority owner of SoulCycle, to grow its digital offerings and compete with rival Peloton. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Hi, I'm your host, Smokey Colbert, filling in for Smokey because after 75 years of...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Turns out there's much more to say. Nearly 90% of wildfires are caused by us humans being careless, dumping our used barbecue coals willy-nilly. Guess the song was wrong. We did start the fire. That's why I respect Mother Nature and her trees, whether coniferous or new car scented. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
What if you could keep the top economic experts in a conference room next to your office without having to feed them?
Do we need better optics? Do we need some substance? Do CEOs care about ESG?
We have seen quite a lot of stimulus pumped into the system already.
It's the biggest warning yet about the financial risks of climate change.
Now there are more ways to hear us. Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and at BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Do you do the same thing every weekend? You know, meet up with the same friends for brunch, browse around the same shops, eat the same Saturday night takeaway. Mine's a lamb balti with mushroom pilau rice. Snuggle up next to the same person and watch the same brain-numbing reality TV. Then maybe it's time to switch it up. Starting with the all-new Vauxhall Corsa, with its bold styling and up to 70 miles per gallon. To switch it up, visit your local Vauxhall dealership or search New Corsa. Official WLTP test figures for comparison purposes only. Real-world figures may vary.
You might already know that TuneIn allows you to listen to all the pro sports leagues wherever you go. But did you know TuneIn is also home to the wide world of college sports?
Open 3, DeAndre Hunter got it! Handoff Carruthers, big hole right side. He leaps and he surges in, touchdown!
From live college football, basketball, and baseball games to podcasts and coaches shows fueling your love for the game in your school. And the best part is, it's all free. Search college sports to find your team or league.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Cutting for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip
Follow
Bayless.
at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
The NBA is on TuneIn Premium.
Pointer by Anthony Davis. That's good!
Each week, TuneIn picks an NBA game you just can't miss. 2 of the top teams in the Western Conference go head-to-head. This Sunday, the Clippers are at the Nuggets. Tip-off is at 8 p.m. Eastern.
3 ball on the way. He got it to go! 3 from the angle. Got it!
Search NBA to follow your favorite NBA team today.
Live from from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
And coming up here on Bloomberg Business Week, we're going to get your chart of the day. Also, beer, college, they go together, but maybe not in the way that you thought. We're going to get into that with Janet Lauren. First, back to Charlie Pellet. He's got an update on the trade. Hey, Charlie.
Well, hello there, Jason Kelly. We've got 29 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ, they're all advancing, indeed all at records, as risk returns after the U.S. and Iran step back from the brink of war. The dollar is advancing. S&P on track for another record as the conflict between the United States and Iran, which drove futures down as much as 1.7% yesterday, has not escalated. Technology leading the gains, oil falling below $60 a barrel here in New York. Right now, we have got the S&P up 19. That's a gain of 0.6%. The Dow up 201 points, up 0.7%. NASDAQ up 66. That is a gain of 0.7%. So again, we've got gold retreating down 0.3, and West Texas Intermediate crude now flat at $59.61 a barrel. So the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all pushing higher. Mike Wilson is chief U.S. equity strategist at Morgan Stanley. He puts it like this.
We have a liquidity-driven bull market right now, and I think it's that simple. I don't think you really need to overthink this. And what we've noticed is that the flows, like what's been outperforming, are the types of securities that would benefit from that, right? Large cap liquid securities that are attached to, guess what? Futures, okay? You know, QQQ, SPY, right? Those, so small caps are still underperforming.
J.P. Morgan Chase has agreed to pay $1.8 million in penalties to settle a regulator's claims that the bank improperly sold brokerage clients expensive mutual funds when cheaper options were available. J.P. Morgan Chase shares, they're up right now by 0.2%. Recapping U.S. equities, they are trading at records. S&P 500 index up 19, up by 0.6%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thanks so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week and streaming live on YouTube. This is Bloomberg.
I have no idea who it is. It's really familiar, though. Yeah, Signs. I get that.
Not the original, though. It's a cover version.
Yeah, who's doing it?
Tesla.
Oh, Lord.
All right, whatever.
Never would have gotten that.
What's the chart of the day?
It's a band named Tesla, and the chart's about a company named Tesla.
Okay,
it all works. Anyway, what the chart shows is what's happened to Tesla's market value over time, especially the last few months that the shares have taken off, and how that compares with Ford and General Motors. So you're talking two of the biggest sort of traditional U.S. automakers. Now, you know, we've seen Tesla pass GM's market value. We've seen Tesla pass Ford's market value. What happened yesterday was unique, though, because Tesla passed the combined market value of both companies. We're talking about almost $89 billion for Tesla and just above $86 billion total for Ford and GM. And if you want to sort of, play out the comparisons even more, Tesla passed Ford's record market value back in 1999. It was about $81 billion. And GM's post-bankruptcy peak of about $67 billion, that was in October 2017. So, no matter how you slice it, Tesla's ascent has been, shall we say, electrifying. Right. And why not for an electric car maker? The chart shows as much. And if you haven't seen it, folks, send me an email. The chart's got to be a sign of something. I'm not quite sure what, but you can figure it out. If you send me an email, I'll get it to you with the explanation that goes with it and everything I do going forward. And you can reach me at dwilson@bloomberg.net. That's dwilson@bloomberg.net.
The crazy part, it's above Daimler and VW also. If you look at I'm looking at the ADRs, at least here in the U.S. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. So great stuff.
It certainly is. Oh, that's what happens when you make money and people don't expect it, and you start selling cars in China that you're building there. I mean, and a year ago, basically, you had nothing, and people pay attention.
All right, Dave. Thanks so much.
We'll see you later on for your stock of the day. Right now, let's move to Janet Lauren, endowments reporter for Bloomberg. I'm just going to read this headline. Beer tax increase considered in New York to fund universities. We're talking about the SUNY and CUNY schools. Janet, tell us what's going on here.
So
beer and college, they go together so well.
Yes, they do. But there's an idea to double the beer tax in New York to go fund CUNY and SUNY, the state and city universities in New York.
And so what's the impact on the beer industry here?
Well,
how do they I'm guessing the beer industry not so happy.
Well, there has been a burgeoning craft brew industry in New York, especially upstate, and they're not happy, not surprisingly. But, New York has a very low beer tax, something that I had no idea until I started working on this story. It's 14 cents per gallon. Wyoming only has 2 cents per gallon, but Tennessee is almost $1.30 per gallon. And this legislator, his name is Harvey Epstein from Manhattan, from the now trendy Lower East Side and East Village, said maybe this is a way to help fund higher education.
Does this seem fair? Does this seem right?
Well, his perspective is, it's not a big tax. It could raise $50 million, which could certainly help. The beer industry says it's just a drop in the bucket and really doesn't address the overall problem. But, we'll see. A second sponsor was picked up, someone on the Senate side. So we shall see.
I mean, it's interesting because public higher education in New York, there are a lot of state universities and city universities. And obviously, especially for middle income folks, this is a very attractive option. And yet, it's still really expensive, right?
It is. However, there is a new program in its second year to really help bridge that gap for middle-income families who make up to $125,000 a year. And through combinations of scholarships, you can go, tuition-free on the Excelsior Scholarship. But this is another way to find a dedicated revenue source. It's potentially $50 million a year.
Right. $13 billion budget for SUNY last year, and about a third of that came from the state.
I think it's interesting. I am so for, money going towards education and making it much more accessible to everyone. I just do wonder, it is a drop in the bucket, and you do wonder, does it really help tackle, in terms of bridging the gaps or the needed funding that they need? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, but when you talk about the public universities, they're not coming in at the price tags of some private colleges
right.
of, 70 or 80, which are struggling even more.
Right. Absolutely. Well, it's an interesting idea, and it does feel like a lot of people are trying to figure out how do we make college more affordable some way or another. Janet Lauren, endowments reporter for Bloomberg. Not surprisingly, it's one of the most read stories on the Bloomberg today.
Put beer in a headline, and that gets
beer,
everybody's
college,
attention on the Bloomberg.
Yeah. People are like, oh, this is about a
We're
tax.
a pretty easy audience.
Yeah.
All right, Janet Lauren, thank you so much. Folks, we're going to count it down to the closing bell. We've just got roughly 20 minutes left to go in trading day. So we'll check in with Alan Lance. He's going to join us once again. A little bit later on, too, we're going to take a look at emerging markets because you might be surprised by some of the outperformance that we had last year. We'll find out what's to come in 2020.
Let's find out what's going on in the world and the nation from Bob Moon. He's here in New York. Hey, Bob.
Jason, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, whose nation lost at least 63 of its people when a Ukrainian jetliner plunged from the sky on takeoff from Tehran this week, was stunning word for his country today.
We have intelligence from multiple sources, including our allies and our own intelligence. The evidence indicates that the plane was shot down by an Iranian surface-to-air missile. This may well have been unintentional.
Trudeau spoke at a news conference in Toronto. Earlier, President Trump had strongly hinted the Iranians were to blame, but he would not say so directly.
I have my suspicions. It was very, I don't want to say that because other people have those suspicions also. It's a tragic thing when I see that. It's a tragic thing. But somebody could have made a mistake on the other side, could have made a mistake.
The crash came just a few hours after Iran launched a ballistic attack against Iraqi military bases housing U.S. troops. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said today she will soon transmit the articles of impeachment against President Trump, signaling a potential thaw in the standoff with Senate Republicans as she warned against rushing to an acquittal without a fair trial. The California Democrat faces mounting pressure from Republicans and some other Democrats to quit delaying the president's trial in the Senate 3 weeks after the House Democrats impeached Trump on charges of abuse and obstruction. Global News 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Bob Moon.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong.
Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's fast-paced environment, where the only constants are change and volatility, you need a prime broker who's both steady and agile, focused on supporting your needs so that you can focus on growing your business and producing results. Exceptional client service and advocating for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning high-touch team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. We help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
In-depth. Imagine yourself in an unspoiled paradise, discovering the charms of a new city, or sampling street food with the locals. Fly from London to more than 160 destinations worldwide and make 2020 a year like never before with Qatar Airways, named world's best airline by Skytrax. Our incredible selection of special fares are available now. Book today at QatarAirways.com. Qatar Airways, going places together.
You might already know that TuneIn allows you to listen to all the pro sports leagues wherever you go. But did you know TuneIn is also home to the wide world of college sports?
Open three, DeAndre Hunter got it! Handoff Carruthers, big hole right side. He leaps and he surges in, touchdown!
From live college football, basketball, and baseball games to podcasts and coaches shows fueling your love for the game in your school. And the best part is, it's all free. Search college sports to find your team or league.
Cutting for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today. Are you curious what others are listening to on TuneIn? Head to the trending section under Browse to see the most popular stations and podcasts among TuneIn listeners right now. Check it out. You might just discover something new for yourself.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Hear every play of the NFL playoffs live with the NFL on TuneIn Premium. The divisional round kicks off Saturday at 4:35 p.m. Eastern when the Vikings travel across country to take on the 49ers in an NFC showdown in Santa Clara. The action continues at 8:15 as the Ravens host the Tennessee Titans in Baltimore. On Sunday, listen live beginning at 3:05 Eastern as the Texans and Chiefs square off in Kansas City, followed by the Seahawks and Packers at 6:40 in Green Bay. The excitement of the NFL playoffs is on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Next time you look up at the stars, think about this.
Inside you are the remains of a stellar explosion. You are made of stardust. And without the stars, there wouldn't be us.
I'm Guy Raj, the wonders of the universe and the people who still look up every night. Next time on the TED Radio Hour from NPR. You can subscribe to the TED Radio Hour on TuneIn.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We've got 13 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. Stocks are pushing higher with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all at records. 18-point jump right now in the S&P 500 index. That is a gain of 0.6%. S&P now at 3270. We have got the Dow up 197 points higher by 0.7%, and NASDAQ is rallying 64 points up by 0.7%. Stocks are rising as investor appetite for risk returns after the U.S. and Iran step back from the brink of war. 10-year up by 30 seconds, yield now 1.85%. We've got gold down 0.4%, $15.50 the ounce, and West Texas Intermediate crude up now at $59.65 a barrel. That is a gain of less than 0.1%. So again, recapping, looking at records ahead of the close here with the S&P up 17, up by 0.5%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm driving in my car. I turn on the radio.
How about you let me drive?
Oh, no.
Who's gonna drive you home?
Honey, please, I'll do the driving.
Drive on.
Excuse me, I want to drive.
Just drive, baby.
It's the question that drives us.
This is the drive to the close.
That funky music will drive us till the dawn.
On Bloomberg Radio.
It is time for the drive to the close. Back with us is Alan Lance. He is research director at LanceGlobal.com, president of Allen B. Lance and Associates. Once again on the phone from Toledo, Ohio. Happy New Year. Nice to have you back with us. Another year, a new decade. Talk to us, though, because, you last year around this time, you had a favorite stock, Celgene, and that was a pretty good call.
Yeah, we got pretty lucky with that. We talked about it at New Year's Eve 2018 as the type of risk reward that we like, Carol, from a standpoint of the stock was down tremendously. They had a lot of assets. Biotech was out of favor, much of the market, the fourth quarter of 2018, and we just thought that had the right risk-reward combination. Little did we know that, 8-9 days later they would accept a takeover at a what turned out to be a 70% premium to as far as where it was trading.
Alan, were you like, all right, everybody, close up the shop.
Yeah,
we're done for the year. We did well. That was an $88 billion deal that Bristol Myers Squibb did for Celgene. It was huge.
Yeah, and that was ideal situation. Now, most of the time, to be fair, our favorite for the year prior, 2018, was Chipotle, and I think it ended the year 2017 at 297, and immediately went to 247 and dropped about 50 points in the midst of all their problems as far as with the health scare and what have you, and it has rebounded and rewarded our subscribers and our investors, but typically that's what happens. We're early, and we don't have the luck like we did in Celgene last year.
Well, rebound. I mean, just talking about Chipotle for a second. I mean, rebounded is an understatement to say the least. It almost doubled last year alone, and it's at another high, I believe, a 52-week high today. It's trading at $8.62 a share. Amazing.
Yeah, it's really had quite a bounce back, and you've liked this one. You guys still own it? Or would own it?
Yeah, we own every share. I mean, we would not buy it here, just like Apple and the other favorites we've talked about over the years. I mean, we wouldn't chase, but Chipotle we still own. I think a brokerage firm just recommended it today. That's why it spiked. And that's great. I'm happy that they're recommending it at such lofty levels. But right now, our main thesis on that was that with new management and as far as with their opportunity internationally and with the drive-through and just invigorating their current stores that they could easily do a turnaround, and we like who they brought in. So that was the thesis there, and now a lot of that is built into the valuation, and we'll continue the ride, but we definitely wouldn't chase it here.
All right, so tell us about your 2020 favorite.
Well, our 2020, we like Cisco, CSCO systems. I think investors are missing out on that. They're going to benefit in 5G as the service providers there start building out their enterprise delivery networks. I think Cisco will capture a lot of that. It's really not noticed by Wall Street. The stock is still at historic lows with a good dividend. So it's a little bit more conservative than what we talked about the last few years. But I think instead of chasing the ones that we own already, we're going to ride the momentum on those as much as we can. And as we take profits or partial profits in the Apples and the Alphabets or Googles of the world, we're going to replace it with companies like Chipotle. For listeners that have a craving for something a little bit more speculative, I think Nokia.
Wait. I want to go back to Cisco for a second. Alan, what's your thinking here? I'm looking at some of the projections in terms of revenue growth quarter to quarter here. And so far, based on estimates, we're looking for revenue declines in the upcoming couple of quarters. Earnings growth, but revenue declines, which always makes investors a little bit nervous here. So what's the thinking? You think that the projections that are out there are too pessimistic, or what?
Well, I think it's okay, Carol. The first half, it's going to be a struggle, but the second half, I really think as the 5G initiative starts taking hold, that they are going to start showing growth, and that's what obviously investors right now are craving, anything with growth, and that's why you've got all these momentum stocks doing so well. So we're just making gradually this transition from the momentum and the high quality names that we've liked for practically a decade now to basically get into some of these other names, whether they're undervalued and unrecognized or out of favor like a Nokia, or whether investors don't see the growth and the potential in a turnaround. We did the same thing 10 years ago with Microsoft when it was struggling in the 20s and really didn't have any kind of growth initiative, and I think Cisco could have a really good decade, and that's the way we look at it, to buy it cheap here before it is recognized and before you start seeing the growth, because by that time I think this stock could be 20-30% higher.
Right. I do think Microsoft's been one of those sleeper stocks in the last 3 years. It was up 55% alone last year, and on top of that you had more than a 1% dividend. So
all right, so let's talk briefly about another 5G related name. That's your speculative pick for 2020, Nokia. That company's had a tough time of late. What could turn it around? 5G?
Yeah, everything that has gone wrong could go wrong, and I think you have not only 5G, you have growth in China, you have a really good international presence that the investors are really not looking at. I think really a lot of investors have just given up on this because it went under $5. They eliminated their dividend, and it's just a matter of this company has just gone down to unprecedented levels that I think is attractive, and somebody with a 2-year time frame, I'm not sure if it's going to be by the end of 2020, but I think if you have a 2-year time frame, at $3.50, $4, you could see a 50% move, similar to what we experienced with Chipotle the first year, and then if they execute, then it could be like the second year with Chipotle, where the second year is actually better than the first.
Interesting. All right. Well, love talking names with you. Thank you so much. Alan Lance, Director of Research at LanceGlobal.com, President of Allen B. Lance and Associates. He joined us on the phone from Toledo, Ohio. So,
cutting you down to the last about 3.5 minutes of
nice
trading
green
here.
Day.
Yeah, absolutely. We've definitely bounced off our lows, bounced off our highs of the session as well, but a little bit of an uptick here as we get into the final few minutes of trading. So we'll break down those closing numbers, take a look at some of the names on the move, and we do have KB Home reporting after the closing bell, so we'll break down those numbers as well, and then also take a look at emerging markets, right? Because that's been an outperformer.
All right, lots more coming up. This is Bloomberg.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Witch Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
Right now, instead of hearing this, you could be listening to the music that keeps you moving with TuneIn Premium. Find today's biggest songs and all of your favorites commercial-free. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Cutting for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marshawn scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We've got records for the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ Composite Index. S&P rallying up 21 points today, up 0.7%. Folks from Alteryx, by the way, ringing that closing bell. Stocks advanced as investors' appetite for risk returned after the U.S. and Iran stepped back from the brink of war. The dollar advanced, S&P rising to a record 32.74, up 0.7%, as the conflict between the U.S. and Iran has not escalated. The 10-year up 6/30 seconds, yield 1.85%. West Texas Intermediate crude pulling back again today, lower little change, down 1 cent now, 59.60 a barrel. Brent 65.41, down just about 0.1%. And gold retreating as well, lower by 0.3%. An ounce of the precious metal now at 15.51. Lots of economic data today. Jobless claims dropping for the fourth week in a row, setting the stage for tomorrow morning's monthly employment report. Let's get that story now from Bloomberg's Vinny Del Giudice.
Today's jobless claims data illustrate the wherewithal of the labor market. Claims fell to 214,000, the lowest in 5 weeks and not far from a half-century low. Looking to Friday's big report, Wall Street forecasts indicate the U.S. wrapped up 2019 with an annual employment gain topping 2 million. That said, wages remain a sore spot for workers in many industries. Vinny Del Giudice, Bloomberg Radio.
And, of course, complete coverage on Bloomberg Radio and Television, 8:30 a.m. Wall Street time. Equinox, the luxury gym chain operator and majority owner of SoulCycle, is in advanced discussions to secure new funding from investors. According to sources, including private equity from firm Silver Lake, the investment would help the fitness company expand a digital platform designed to compete against rival Peloton Interactive. Peloton Interactive shares did trade lower today, down by just about 5%. So again, records on Wall Street with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing. S&P up 21, a gain there of 0.7%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Wild thing, think you move me. I got a few moves I know you'll like. Oh, come on, shake him, not stir. Just move on toward your destination.
I can make things move without touching them.
Shaking all over.
Bloomberg Business Week, Movers and Shakers, with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, you are listening to Bloomberg Business Week on Bloomberg Radio and on YouTube. I'm Carol Master along with Jason Kelly. Let's take a look at some of the movers and shakers, but let's do the big picture, if we may, first. And you can tell, obviously, as we've been tracking the trade on this Thursday, you've got a little bit more of a bullish tone, backing off those concerns about the Middle East and tension specifically with Iran. So let's go through the S&P 500, splitting it and taking a look at winners and losers. 373 names in the index higher today, 130 lower, 2, though, Jason, unchanged. So definitely a much more risk-on trade today.
All right. Well, let's take a look at one of your best performers in the Dow, Boeing. I believe, let's see, what did it end up?
So Boeing ending the day up about 1.5%, up more than 3% at its highs.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the reason it's up, I mean, this is one of the sort of nutty things about the market. It's up because one of its planes crashed on its way from Tehran to Ukraine. And initially, in part because it's a Boeing plane, I think it's fair to say, and Boeing has had all these problems, it was attributed to a mechanical failure. Now there is strong evidence, both from the U.S. and from the Canadian governments and others, essentially saying the plane was shut down.
Right, exactly, right. So it's, Boeing, right, 2019, if anything, the concerns over the 737 MAX. And
this was not a 737 MAX, obviously, because they're not in the air.
But I think it was just concerns about, okay, now what's going wrong at Boeing? And so, unfortunately, like as Jason said, tragic story, but maybe if it's not the responsibility of Boeing, and that's why you see the stock bouncing back again. Do want to mention also, let's talk about Chipotle.
Let's do it.
Mexican Grill. We were just talking about it with one of our guests, Alan Lance. It's a stock that they have done very well on in terms of their call. He talked about often being early, but man, that one has paid off really, really well.
So Chipotle was upgraded today to a perform from underperform by Oppenheimer. The analyst over there, Brian Bittner, saying more confidence from investors that peak unit level economics from 2015 15 will be restored after that aforementioned strong year last year. Digital sales, they've been the biggest contributor to 2019's sales growth. Sales, by the way, up 10% year over year in 2019. So, I mean, that's pretty amazing. I mean, double-digit growth for a company that's that established really shows that they are firing on all cylinders. I got to say, I like Chipotle.
Yeah, I do too. Exactly. And they went through really, a long period of trouble after trouble after trouble. But a new CEO, in fact, he's going to mark soon his 2-year anniversary at the company. Certainly.
His options have done well.
Retail. So take a look.
Story there.
Yeah, exactly. Kohl's and the Gap, they are your two biggest decliners in the S&P 500. Specifically, Kohl's down about 6.5%. The Gap down about 3.5%. Kohl's, also JCPenney, I should point, they were dropping after declines in holiday sales. Kohl's, JCPenney, and L Brands were the latest mall-based retailers to report declining holiday sales, reinforcing concerns that department stores and apparel chains, are losing ground despite robust growth in consumer spending. And Jason, that's what you've got going on. We constantly talk about the strength in consumer spending. Consumers are out there shopping, but apparently they're not doing it necessarily at Kohl's or the Gap. L Brands, though, what's interesting, despite some disappointment,
best performer in the S&P.
It's up about 4.5%. I'm trying to figure out, I'm looking for either commentary to figure out why L Brands seems to be bucking that trend.
Weak holiday sales. Victoria's Secret, this was the headline on the Bloomberg today. Victoria's Secret is fading into obscurity, Jeffries warns, I should say. And, once again, you have a company in L Brands where what was really driving the stock for so long is, becoming less relevant. But Bath & Body Works is also part of L Brands. That business has done very well, and so maybe some of the optimism is there, but interesting.
This is interesting. One analyst weighing in, I'm trying to look at who it is specifically. The Jeffries, you know what he said, despite the report, thinking that bullish investors may be betting that the performance of Victoria's Secret and Pink is, quote, so bad it will force a split of the brand.
Interesting.
The better performing L Brands company, Bath & Body Works. So if you start to write, did you just say that?
I sort of did. I anticipated
Sort of. Is that like saying it or just kind of coming close?
Yikes.
I know, it's getting a little chilly.
All right, I'm going to look at volatility.
Let's do that.
Speaking of volatility, the VIX, that just tracks volatility in the markets, not the volatility in this studio. The VIX down 6.5%, closing at 12.58. This is Bloomberg.
All right, Dave, you're up.
Hi, my name is Dave.
Wilson, where are you? Wilson!
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
We're going for a price on Wilson.
Open up the door, it's Dave. Who? Dave.
Hey, Mr.
All right, Dave Wilson back in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio. Your stock of the day. What do you got for us, Dave?
I'm talking sushi, Carol. It's Forex Sushi USA. They operate revolving sushi bars where customers select the dishes they want from a conveyor belt.
Love it.
The company has about 24 restaurants, in fact, exactly 24, mainly in California and Texas. It's a unit of a Japanese chain called Kura. Now, Kura Sushi went public in July with a $41 million stock sale. The ticker is KRUS. The stock soared 74% in its first 2 days of trading and overcame a subsequent slump to set a record on Christmas Eve. Kura Sushi now has more to overcome, specifically its first disappointing earnings report as a public company. The results came out late yesterday for the fiscal first quarter, which ended in November. Kura Sushi had a wider loss and lower revenue than analysts expected based on the Bloomberg survey. The company said higher costs for real estate and labor reduced its profit margin on a per restaurant basis from a year ago. Now, Kura Sushi's shares dropped as much as 18% in response to those results. They closed with a loss of 11%, the steepest since last August.
Yeah, it's been bouncing around a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Just a little bit. All right, Dave Wilson.
Like plucking my sushi off the little conveyor belt. Sushi boat. That's what I've had.
All I can think of is I Love Lucy and the conveyor belt with chocolate.
Yeah.
All right, you're listening to Bloomberg Business Week on Bloomberg Radio.
Let's get to Bob Moon. He's got your world and national headlines. Hey, Bob.
Jason, Canada is a nation in shock. It says the country's Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau.
My most sincere condolences to the families of the victims and their loved ones. And we are all standing with you.
Trudeau confirmed today that intelligence from his country and its allies indicates a plane carrying at least 63 Canadian citizens that plunged to the ground on takeoff from Tehran this week was struck by a surface-to-air missile from Iran, adding that it may not have been intentional. There were also 82 Iranians among the 176 people who died aboard the plane. U.S. intelligence officials also believe Iran was responsible. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports President Trump stopped short of saying that today.
The president was asked at a White House ceremony his view of what happened to the airplane.
I have my suspicions. Other people have those suspicions also. Somebody could have made a mistake on the other side. Not our system. No, it has nothing to do with us. It was flying in a pretty rough neighborhood. Some people say it was mechanical. I personally don't think that's even a question. Something very terrible happened. Very devastating.
With the Iranian government refusing to give the flight recorders to Boeing to analyze, the president hoped they would go to reliable investigators such as France. On Capitol Hill, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
And in the meantime, the German airline Lufthansa says a Tehran-bound flight returned to Frankfurt today, and it has suspended flying over Iraqi and Iranian airspace. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Bob Moon.
Can't be the only one who spends time examining angles.
This sort of mini deal, what would it look like?
Considering possibilities.
From a credit perspective, this is good news.
Planning for eventualities.
This company really has to get back on a growth track.
You're right. The others are here.
General Electric is such an interesting story.
Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern. On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Listen, as a hiring manager, I've got to tell you, the best job candidate isn't always the typical candidate. Sometimes they're a grad of life.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Sometimes the best candidates aren't the ones you're used to.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
The market's in focus every business day. The P&L Podcast with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz.
Are there some sectors that you want to have more or less exposure to?
What's behind this engine of gains?
Analysis of the day's Wall Street action.
The U.S. market looks relatively safe.
From Bloomberg Intelligence, Bloomberg Opinion, and influential newsmakers.
Ward McCarthy joins us right now.
P&L with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz. Listen today on Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the...
Welcome to Nuffield Health Battersea, a gym built around you. You get regular health MOTs to create a plan that works for you, with physios and personal trainers on site. You'll find a wide range of equipment and classes, and our expert team will support you to get the most out of your health, fitness, and your membership. Join today to get the rest of the month free. Search Nuffield Health. Specialists in you. 12-month commitments only. Facilities stated are in most gyms. Visit nuffieldhealth.com/terms.
I spy with my little eye something beginning with B.
Bike.
Nope. Banana tree.
Oh, of course. We must have missed it.
Although you might not be able to see it, your small actions can have a real impact with Shell. Drive carbon neutral by filling up and using Shell Go Plus today. Make the change. Drive carbon neutral. Shell. Go well. See goplus.shell.com/CO2 for details.
At Asda, our baby event is now on. Get Dove baby lotion. Was £2.50, now only £1.55. And the Tommy Tippy Perfect Prep Machine was £100, now just £60. Great brands, great prices. Don't compromise. Asda, save money, live better. Selected stores and lines subject to availability.
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sail.
That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30 gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
At Argos, our sale is still on and so much more, with new products added. Go online to shop our full range of amazing deals, including home, tech and toys. Get same-day home delivery 7 days a week. With Argos, you're good to go. Subject to availability, selected lines, delivery conditions apply, order by 6 p.m, 90% UK coverage.
I used to be a bit of a rubbish sleeper. I'd toss and turn all night. And somehow I could never find the comfy bit of the mattress. It was a proper nightmare. That's what brought me here. Testing mattresses in the Which Test Lab. We use a custom-made barrel rolling machine to simulate a decade's worth of use. And the mattresses that perform best are the only ones we recommend for your bedroom.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
From dancing through the streets to the pulsing heartbeat in Brazil, to heading out on a safari in South Africa, or exploring the cultural delights of China. Wherever in the world you want to be, you can get there from your doorstep with KLM Royal Dutch Airlines. Book your dream deal at klm.com by January 21st and fly via Amsterdam from a choice of 16 UK airports. Make your dream a reality with KLM.
Harry Bikers here. This message goes out to something very special.
Yes, we're talking to you, chicken.
Maybe we've been seeing too much of each other.
But times have changed, Dave.
We've been cheating on meat.
Thing is, Norse stocks make veggie dishes so irresistible that cheating on meat is proper tasty.
Our dear chicken, you were the fire in my life. But it's all about you now, aubergine katsu curry. Prepare to be wined and dined, my love.
Cheat on meat with no veggie stocks.
Vision Express understands we're inspired by what we see. Right now, with every pair of glasses, you'll get varifocal lenses half price, plus our 60-day total satisfaction guarantee. Book your eye test online today. Vision Express. Vision taken seriously. Terms and conditions apply. See in store for details.
And breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet, just getting the latest numbers out of KB Home. It did report revenue for the fourth quarter that missed the lowest analyst estimate. Right now, looking at the shares, they are moving lower, down by almost 3% after hours. So a miss there for KB Home. We'll have more details as they become available. Another day of records, though, for the Dow, the S&P, and the Nasdaq Composite Index. S&P climbing 21 points, up by about 0.7% today. The Dow also up 0.7%. Record there up 211 points, and Nasdaq up 74. That was a gain of 0.8%. The why behind all of this? Investor appetite for risk returning after the U.S. and Iran step back from the brink of war. 10-year up 5/30 seconds, yield 1.85%. We've got gold down 0.3%, 15.51 the ounce, and West Texas Intermediate crude oil up 2 cents, 59.63 a barrel. So again, recapping here, stocks at records. S&P 500 index up 21 points, higher by 0.7%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week, also streaming live on YouTube. Jason Kelly and Carol Masser with you. And now I'm loath to say that there's a lot of news happening because I was smacked around a little bit for saying that earlier because we are in the news.
I just give you like the death stare.
Sometimes you roll your eyes. And I should remind you now that we are streaming on YouTube. And so when you roll your eyes at me, America, nay, the world is going to see it.
I am what I am. That's what we say. Hey, speaking of I am what I am, we're going to talk a little bit about emerging markets in just a moment. You are listening to Bloomberg Radio. All right, so let's talk about emerging markets because they gained more than 15% for 2019 overall. But check out the emerging markets internet and e-commerce ETF. It gained, Jason, more than double that that last year. It's up about 32% in 2019. So let's talk about how focusing the emerging markets play may lead to outsized gains. Kevin Carter is with us. He's founder of EMQQ. He's on the phone from San Francisco. So Kevin, nice to have you with us. Tell us a little bit about the emerging markets world and in terms of kind of focusing on how you play it and what that can do to returns.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, and good to hear from you guys. Emerging markets are challenging to invest in. I mean, they've had a nice, relative move in the last few months, but if you go back 10 years, they've really underperformed. And the problem is that the broad indexes that the biggest ETFs track, they're full of government-owned banks and oil companies that aren't really for profit. And so I think people can expect to continue to get poor returns from the broader indexes over the long term. And really, when you break it down, it's all about the consumer in emerging markets. That's what's emerging. And just as the way we consume has changed because of the smartphone, it's changing in the developing world, but even more rapidly because they don't really have the traditional infrastructure for consumption that we think of.
And so walk us through some of the names that you have put in here, because I would imagine it takes a fair amount of diligence and sort of separating the names that really have some potential from the also-rans isn't easy.
Well, this is a rules-based, index-based ETF. So we're buying every publicly traded internet company in the developing world as long as it meets minimum size and liquidity requirements. So we're not really trying to pick this is the winner, that's the winner. We're simply saying this is where the growth is, and there's going to be many winners, and maybe those that don't win or don't win as much. But we own all of them, and it's the same things that we see here in our lives. It's mobile payments. It's everything on the smartphone, ride hailing. And so it's everyone knows Alibaba and Tencent, but those are the big Chinese platforms. But this is about Africa, it's about South America, it's about Eastern Europe, and I think it's the fastest growing sector in the world.
Sorry, so forgive me, I misspoke about sort of how they make their way in, but talk to us about some of the names that are in there, because it does feel like some of these actually might be familiar to folks as they are, becoming more and more prominent.
Sure. Well, again, Alibaba is sort of the flagship of the portfolio. It's the largest emerging markets internet company. And I think one of the things people don't really understand about Alibaba, though, is it's not just, the Amazon of China. It's so much more. They're in finance. Alipay, their payments arm is quite enormous. And so, that's the most well-known one. But we all know the comparable. We know what Netflix is. We know what Uber is. But what we own are things like Mercado Libre, the Amazon of Brazil, and Yandex, the Google of Russia. So it's the same types of things that we see in our lives, but it's the localized versions. And again, because these consumers never had bank accounts, there's no Target stores, the growth rate is even faster there.
Hey, one thing I wonder, Kevin, when you say that you're kind of buying up all the internet and e-commerce companies that are out there in the emerging market world, I do wonder if the internet world of the emerging world has yet to go through its 1999, 2000 kind of craze and sell-off. Will we see that, like significant fallout, and that's something that you need to think about when investing in these companies?
Well, obviously, bubbles and stretched valuations are always something to be wary of. This is a sector of companies that's grown at 38.5% revenue for the last decade, a year. On average, it's still growing about 30%. So the fundamentals are very strong, and the valuations are pretty reasonable when you sort of look at the forward PE multiple and sort of Windsorize to take out the outliers. The PE multiple is in the mid-20s on the forward-looking numbers, and the growth rate's still about 30%. So you're paying a PE to growth rate of less than 1.
Wow! Yeah.
And with the S&P 500, you're paying 20 times. But only getting 5% revenue growth.
So you don't anticipate a crash akin to the one we saw certainly in the U.S. internet bubble, or do you?
I think the U.S. internet bubble valuations were several times what the current valuations are for these companies. These are profitable companies. These are real businesses throwing off lots of cash.
Right. All right. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Kevin Carter's founder of EMQQ. He joined us on the phone from San Francisco. Coming up, we're going to take a look at KB Homes. Obviously, housing, something that is tracked very closely by investors as a key economic indicator. Being able to sort of feather that in with what we're going to hear about the employment picture tomorrow is important.
KB Homes right now is down about 2.5%, so we'll break it down. We have seen, certainly over the last 12 months or so, investors plowing back into some of those home builder names. So we'll see what's in store when it comes to the outlook here. All right, you're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Master along with Jason Kelly in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. And a little bit later on, we're going to track the winners and losers when it comes to the hedge fund industry. We're continuing to get the returns from a lot of those big hedge fund names, so we'll tally that up as well. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week on Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Easing tensions in the Middle East gave stocks room to run. The Dow Jones Industrial Average jumped 212. The S&P 500 gained 22. The Nasdaq Composite rose 74. It was a rough day for Kohl's and JCPenney. Kohl's shares tumbled 6.5%. Penny's dropped nearly 11%. Both posted lower same-store sales for the 9-week holiday season, despite a broader rise in consumer spending. Small businesses had an easier time filling jobs last month. The National Federation of Independent Business says the share of business owners unable to fill jobs shrank to the lowest level since May 2018. Finding qualified workers remains their toughest issue. It could cost Boeing another $5 billion if pilots need simulator training before flying the 737 MAX. Bloomberg Intelligence says that would be nearly double the amount that Boeing is already committed to pay for the plane's grounding. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
What if you could keep the top economic experts in a conference room next to your office without having to feed them?
Do we need better optics? Do we need some substance? Do CEOs care about ESG?
We have seen quite a lot of stimulus pumped into the system already.
It's the biggest warning yet about the financial risks of climate change.
Now there are more ways to hear us. Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and at BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Puts his head down, crashes in
the snap is good. The hold is good. The kick is on its way. It is good!
Did you know all weekend long the NFL playoffs are on TuneIn?
In for the touchdown!
Search NFL to never miss a moment of the action.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Along the goal line, scores! It takes it home!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
Hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
Gonna move, hit a shot, he scores!
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today. You might already know that TuneIn allows you to listen to all the pro sports leagues wherever you go. But did you know TuneIn is also home to the wide world of college sports?
Open three, DeAndre Hunter got it!
Hand off Carruthers. Big hole right side. He leaps and he surges in. Touchdown.
From live college football, basketball, and baseball games to podcasts and coaches shows fueling your love for the game in your school. And the best part is, it's all free. Search college sports to find your team or league.
The NBA is on TuneIn Premium.
Pointer by Anthony Davis. That's good!
Each week, TuneIn picks an NBA game you just can't miss. Two of the top teams in the Western Conference go head-to-head. This Sunday, the Clippers are at the Nuggets. Tip-off is at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Three ball on the way. He got it to go!
Three from the angle. Got it!
Search NBA to follow your favorite NBA team today.